The federal pesticides regulator has raised fresh safety concerns for children about a chemical widely used on berries. The ABC revealed earlier this year that consumption of blueberries, raspberries and blackberries by Australians had jumped significantly. Reporter Rachel Clayton joins us now from Melbourne. So Rachel, tell us about the concerns.
Ros, the concerns that the regulator is voicing this week is that the amount of a particular pesticide called dimethylate has been, the amount of it on berries is too high. It's been applied in a way that means we are eating too much of it. Until very recently, the regulator was relying on consumption data from the 1990s to determine how this pesticide is allowed to be used on berries. The data is really important. That consumption data is really important because of how pesticides work. So, for example, when it comes to apples, the amount of pesticide residue allowed to be left on apples is quite low because Australians eat a lot of them. If you take something like coriander, the amount that's allowed to be left on herbs like coriander is quite high because we're not all going around eating bunches of coriander. We're just using it as a garnish on our food. So the APVMA, the regulator, had assumed that Australians were eating far fewer berries than they actually were. It has now come out and said the amount of pesticide, particular pesticide dimethylate allowed to be left on blueberries, raspberries and blackberries means that it has been unsafe, potentially, especially for young children aged 2 to 6.
So what's the advice, Rachel?
What's changed now is that something called the withholding period has been increased. So before now, farmers were allowed to spray blueberries in particular with dimethylate, which is an insecticide, and then harvest those berries one day later. Which means that the amount of pesticide on those blueberries when you buy them at the supermarket was quite high because pesticide breaks down over time. They've now said that farmers must wait at least 14 days, so 2 weeks, before they can harvest that fruit to give an ample amount of time for dimethylate to break down so that we're not eating as much of it if you go through an entire punnet in one sitting. And this is, the regulators now agreeing with an ABC investigation that was published in September that exposed this. A scientist called Kirsten Benkendorf had raised the alarm with the EPA and regulators earlier this year. And the regulator has now agreed that the residue limit on these berries is far too high. Because the withholding period has increased so much to 14 days, it's likely that farmers will just stop using the chemical altogether because it means that they'd have to leave the fruit on the tree for quite some time and they just risk the fruit going bad if they wait that long. So it's likely to be more economical and easier for them to just stop using that chemical. But yes, the rules for now have increased so that farmers can no longer harvest after 1 day for blueberries or 6 days for raspberries and blackberries. They have to wait at least 2 weeks.